It has been just over 1 month since I mounted the Active 2.3 pressure washer up here on my wall. And in the last month, I have probably washed 30 different vehicles with this particular unit, been through many wash cycles. And today I'm going to tell you what it's been like to live with this thing. Now, this unit has been out since April of 2024. So I know this review is quite a bit late, but understand I am not somebody who just tests and reviews products and details as a hobby. I run a full-fledged detailing business called Clear Detailing here in Windsor, Colorado. I've been running this business for 12 plus years. I am in the trenches every single day, detailing vehicles and washing cars and doing all of that stuff. So this is my life, this is my passion, and I think I can give you guys a little bit deeper insight into the world of detailing from my experience using different products and tools. And today we're going to be doing a full deep dive review on the Active 2.3 to see if it's something you should actually spend your hard-earned money on. Welcome back to the channel, and let's jump into it. Before we jump into today's video, for full transparency right up front here, Active did supply me with this 2.3 pressure washer unit to review completely free of charge. Now, as you guys know on this channel, I do not accept any sort of money for reviewing products. If it's a product showcase, I will tell you it's a product showcase and it's a sponsored piece of content. This is going to be my full unbiased opinion of the Active 2.3. I'm going to tell you whether this thing's completely junk, whether it's amazing, or whether it's somewhere in between. At the end of the day, I know my opinion to you guys really matters, so I don't want to push products that I don't truly believe in. So with that, let's jump into the video. Now we're going to start off here in the video talking about pricing and specs, because I think that's something that I haven't necessarily followed over the last 5 years of which I've owned my Krenza K1322 TS. The entire pressure washer market has very much changed. So this is the Active Pressure Washer 2.3 tool only version. This retails at $539. Now this initially launched back in April of 2024 with an entire kind of shell on it. I don't even know what they actually describe it. A frame, I guess, would be the best way to say it. And when it initially launched, I was like, why did they do that? It's just a cumbersome design. It's very large. It's not ideal to mount to a wall. And Active, being active in the community, actually listened to feedback. And a lot of people were saying, we need a tool only. Bring the price down. We don't need all the weird accessories with it. We just want the tool. And that's exactly what we have here. So this has a maximum pressure of 1500 PSI. You're never really going to see that using this here. It also has a working flow of 1100 PSI. We're going to be doing all of our testing with that, and a claimed 2.3 gallons per minute. This uses a 128 induction motor, which is very different from what you see in the Active 2.0, which is actually the entry-level unit into the Active kind of landscape of pressure washers here. And I'll tell you right off the bat, I would much prefer to have the induction motor in here, especially for a professional application. Very different of how they ramp up flow and kind of shut off as well. And I think you miss a lot of that shrill that the Active 2.0 has. That'll be an interesting topic, talking about noise. I know some people have some very interesting opinions. I'll definitely be giving you mine and tell you how this thing actually sounds. Now, this thing also has their patented 5-piston pump head technology on this, which creates all of that flow, all of that GPM in here. Seems like a pretty robust system. The other cool thing about these units is Active has actually made these to be serviceable. So this is something you can change the oil in, you can replace seals in, you can replace the pump head on, and I believe you can even service the motor on this. Now, a lot of the universal motors out there are simply products that you purchase from a big box store, Home Depot, Lowe's, something like that. It's got a lifespan on it, typically between 100 and maybe 150 hours, probably slightly less than that. Once that thing breaks, you throw it in the garbage, you get a new one. Those are completely sealed units. You can't change the oil. You can't change any of the seals, any of the check valves, anything like that inside. So that is why professionals use something that is actually serviceable. Now, the other important spec with a product like this from Active, it can actually be used at home, meaning that you don't need a 20 amp dedicated circuit like you do with the Krenzas, the ARs of the world. This is something that can pretty much work on everybody's home electrical grid, and you don't have to put in more electricity just to have a pressure washer. So this is actually meant to work on 15 amps. We'll talk a little bit about that in the review. They have optimized this by giving you 4.6 orifices over here that actually come with the tool only version. So you've got your 40 degree, 25, 15, and 0 degree. all in a 4.6 orifice, as well as what you're gonna need for your foam cannon. Most foam cannons out there in the market come with a 1.25 millimeter orifice. Your MTMs over here, stuff like Armor Drift foam cannons, most of them come with that. Some of them also come with a 1.1 if you're using, a lower flow pressure washer and need to kind of bump up the amount of foam and you have the headroom to be able to do that, not overdraw the machine, you can use a 1.1. This uses a 1.45. Now there have been some folks out there, and I've read it in the comment section of my videos, and you guys have said that, Active says this is a 1.45, but it actually measures out more like a 1.5 or even slightly higher than that. I asked Active about it. I don't have all the little tool gauges to measure that. It's not something I really want to get into, but they claim this is just a 1.45. They're not sure where that comes from. So that is their official response to that. So that comes with that. You're gonna put it right into your foam cannon. Super simple to do on pretty much all of the foam cannons. You just take the 1/4 inch threaded on the back side of your foam cannon, unhook it out with a flathead screwdriver, screw in the new one, you're gonna be good to go. That's gonna make sure you're not gonna go over that 15 amp headroom on there. So I wanna quickly talk about the pressure washer industry as a whole, because I'll be totally honest, I haven't necessarily followed it to a T because I've been using really one unit for the past 5 years, and that is the Krenzla K1322 TS. If you guys know what that unit is, or you don't know what that unit is, it's essentially, I believe, one of the best pressure washers ever made. Now, on terms of specs, it is way behind now, 5 years later from when it was kind of really launched or really introduced in the detailing industry. And it was basically a collaboration between Obsessed Garage and Krenzla, and they came together, took basically 2 different units, made it into a shell that you could mount up on the wall. They looked beautiful, German engineered, super quiet, great flow, great pressure at the time, made for car washing, and it was the cream of the crop. It was the top of the top at the time. Now, I purchased that unit, really when it came out, and once I got into this space here that I'm working out of, and I've been nothing but blown away with it. So I want to give my feedback on that, because this is not necessarily a Krenzla versus Active kind of comparison video, but I just want to talk about where the landscape is, how it's changed so much, and kind of my thoughts on it. Because, as good as the Krenzla was, I don't think most people can justify going and spending $1,200, $1,300 on a pressure washer setup when they're washing their car at home, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, or maybe just even every other week. And I think it's been really interesting to see, because 5 years ago, what I felt was you had these really high-end machines, and then you had junk from the big box stores that just didn't last. They were really not optimized for car washing, more just optimized for like more pressure rather than flow, which is opposite of what you want for car washing. And now, and I think one of the big players in the industry, of course, has been Active, coming out with the 2.0 at a $350 price point, essentially beating the specifications slightly on the Krenzla, because my unit, I believe, was 1.9 GPM at 1000 PSI with a 4.0 orifice. I tested mine 5 years later after doing all the check valves, all the seals in it. It registered with my testing equipment here at 1.88 gallons per minute, like 990 PSI with a 4.0 orifice. So didn't lose very much since, Matt originally tested that years and years ago now. I think it was like 7+ years ago. But that's been the really crazy thing. So we still do have kind of all the crap out there, if you will, but now we've got a cool middle ground where we're meeting specs that a lot of professionals are using, like myself in a professional detail shop, and you can actually use them at home. Again, not needing to have that 20 amp dedicated circuit like the Krenzlas, the ARs of the world, at a very reasonable price point. Then you get to something like this, the 2.3, and it's like, okay, so this unit is, producing almost 0.4 gallons per minute more than my Krenzla, and is literally half the price of it. That is pretty darn wild. So when I mounted this up on my wall, I don't know if it was the case of I kind of had a chip on my shoulder, and I kind of just thought, Krenzla is still the best. I love this machine. Everybody knows Krenzla, and is like, yeah, it's freaking awesome. And I kind of put this up on my wall expecting to be like, it's cool, but I think it's really more meant for DIY enthusiasts. And then I started using it, and that is why I wanted to mount it up and play with it and live with it for a month. And I am honestly having a really hard time going back to my Krenzla. So much so, in fact, the Krenzla is actually getting sold, and there is something replacing it up here. Is the Active 2.3 going to stay up here, or is there something else coming? I don't know. You guys are going to have to stay tuned. But it's kind of one of those things, once you experience high flow, you really can't go back. And I think that's something a lot of you guys have given me feedback on, and something that I finally realized after using this for a month. So truth be told, I've been blown away with this unit, so much so that it has literally forced me to sell my Krenzla and go a different direction. And that's why it's been so impressive to me. Now let's get into doing some pressure testing, and then we'll talk about washing the car, again, kind of my experience with that, and do all that fun stuff. But it's been really, really cool playing around with this for the last month. All right, so we're gonna start off here with our pressure testing. So let's pull some hose out of here. We'll get this all untangled, as always. I swear detailers just literally play with hoses more than they actually detail with cars. So I have also actually been testing this. This is the Active stubby nose gun, and I actually purchased this with my own money, as well as their foam cannon. I wanted to play with their products to go with their machine, so I do have some investment into this review here. And I've been using this, and I gotta say I don't love it. Now, I think this comes in at a great price point for the overall build quality of it, the robustness. It's made with very high quality materials on here. It does feel decently nice in the hand. You know, you've got stainless steel quick disconnects here and here. The inside is actually brass, as you can probably see right there. The issue I have with this is they have made this area rubberized here, and I'll tell you, when you get soap all over your hands after, you know, ducking it in a bucket, doing your contact wash, this becomes unbelievably slippery. And the other thing I don't like here is their actual trigger. So the trigger to me is way too sensitive. Actually, I was just filming a clip before this, and I literally, you know, sprayed it on accident, and it just went all over everything here. So I just had to dry it up and kind of restart the whole clip. It's been really annoying for that. Personally, and this is just a big preference, is the angle of this gun. You can see it's laid pretty flat here. I personally prefer one that is more 90 degree. So a lot of people use the SGS 28s from MTM. I'm an SGS 35 guy. I just prefer that. That's what I've used for years and years. So coming to this just feels a little weird. Also, not the most ergonomic up here. I just don't ever really feel comfortable with this. So just wanted to include that here. Now we'll get our pressure gauge set up, put this into here, and then let's drain some water out of here. Smart turn on water. What are we doing here, Colton? You need water to do a pressure washer. All right, so we'll let this flow through the pump here for a little bit. Always nice practice to do this on the units, because if you get some air in here, it can be a little hard on the motors. So let's actually turn this on. Want to talk to you guys about noise on this. So to me, it's got a very healthy noise. Now, this being an induction motor, it's very different from a universal motor found in the 2.0. The Active 2.0, in my personal opinion, sounds way worse and does, in my opinion, sound louder than this particular unit. Now, sound is, in my impression, always a little subjective. People hear different frequencies very differently. Yes, I've seen the people who, you know, they take a decibel meter up to pressure washers and stuff like that, and it's just, decibel meters are different. I have 35-foot ceilings in here. Somebody may have a 10-foot ceiling. Noise bounces around differently. If you're mounting this outside, it's clearly going to be different than if you're standing 2 feet away from it here. I will tell you, yes, this is a loud unit. I personally don't think it is too loud whatsoever. Now, typically, when I'm detailing cars, especially when I'm washing cars, I have AirPods, noise-canceling headphones in. I don't even hear this. I'm typically listening to Joe Rogan talk about aliens or the new whatever. I'm just listening to music. I can't even hear this machine over my AirPods 3 noise canceling at all. I literally cannot hear it whatsoever. So I personally would say, if you have neighbors, you like to wash early in the morning, late at night, I think this is the one to go for over the 2.0. To me, it also sounds like you actually bought a legit pressure washer instead of a cheap universal motor. That's my personal opinion. So we've got a couple different tips to play with here. This is the 4.6 that actually comes with the actual unit in that little situation with the tool only. And I've also got a 4.5 here just to play around with. I think it's interesting that Active did this. Now my assumption is this is fully optimized to be as high a flow at 1000 PSI optimize as humanly possible. So we're gonna turn this on up here. This will be ready to go. That's how we measure our current draw here. This is our 4.6 tip in here. I'll bring this up here so you guys can clearly see it. So that is 1,000 PSI right at 13.9 amps. So pretty well optimized. Now, you could also bump up to, a 5.0 orifice, which would, decrease your pressure by quite a bit. I would assume you're probably going to be in the 800 to 850 range. Now, this brings up an interesting topic that I heard Matt Mormon talk about, that he completely made up the 1,000 PSI. Now, I kind of subscribe to that whole 1,000 PSI rationale. I think anywhere between 900 and 1,100 is kind of optimized. But again, what we're trying to do here for washing cars is get the most amount of flow. So yes, you could go down a little bit, get slightly more flow on that, but at some point it becomes kind of diminishing value. Now I don't have a 5.0 here, so we're not going to test that, but just wanted to bring that up. I would probably stick with the 4.6, and also Active says do not go below essentially a 4.5. So this is a 4.5 here. I will also tell you what this is. This should be like within a couple of PSI. So that leveled out at 13.33 amps, and it was, I would say probably right in the 975 area. I don't use a digital gauge. I don't think we need to be that incremental. You could see it was slightly less than 1,000. But yeah, honestly, I think the unit sounds really, really nice. I'm very impressed with it. I do not mind the sound at all. And in fact, I think it actually sounds really good. It sounds very industrial, really good. So we will also grab our active foam cannon here, and I've got my normal solution that I typically use in my Krenzla with the 1.25 orifice on here. And again, we'll talk about that when we get to washing the car, is that these high flow machines really do require a different level of soap in them. So if you were to take this solution, put it into here, you have bigger orifice, more flow, it's naturally going to be more runny. So it's this really interesting conundrum with this machine. That's one kind of issue that I have with it. I do wish you could run, a 1.25 orifice or even a 1.35 in this, but it's going to pull it over 15 amps. And Active, they say this machine is made to be used on 15 amps. If you go over it, can damage the micro switch, the total stop system, all that type of stuff. So really, you want to stick with the 1.45. I have played with it. The foam does get better with the same type of solution as you go down and down. So interesting to note there. Well, let's see what the foam cannon pulls here. Right under 1,000 PSI. I didn't see the current draw. Interesting. That's only pulling 13.1. I have not actually done this testing on here. So let's try this with a 1.25. I know Active says you're not supposed to do this, but let's see what it does on an MTM. Yeah, you can hear it. That way overdid it. So, okay, just stick with the 1.45 that comes with it. But that's pretty interesting. It feels like we had some headroom. You could clearly see it. It also flashed that it way overamped it. So don't want to do that too much. Again, you're going to blow up your micro switch here. Doesn't sound like it likes that quite enough. So interesting. So we'll take that into consideration. We'll take all of that into our GPM calculations. So now let's swap on our 1.46 or our 4.6 and do our flow calculation. And we have a fully zeroed out scale. We've got a timer on here. I'm going to set the top lid on here, hopefully a little gracefully. Went on okay that time. We're going to start this at 10 seconds. We're going to pull the trigger, run it for exactly 1 minute until 1 minute and 10 seconds, and measure the total output in 1 minute. Perfect. We'll shake the water off here to give it all the last little drops there, and we came out with 18.50 pounds of water. All right, guys, so this has actually leveled back up to 18.52. So if we take 18.52, divide that by 8.34, the weight of a gallon of water, that gives us 2.22 gallons per minute. So actually a little bit under that 2.3, but I think very, very respectable here, again, for that $539 unit. So now that we've got all of the specs on this, all of that fun stuff, you know where this sits at in terms of everything else in the market. Let's actually wash a car with it and see how it is. All right, guys, so we're gonna go through and do some foaming action on this. We'll do some rinsing action. I'm not gonna show you the entire thing because this video would be quite a bit longer than it already is. So also wanna mention here, I've got the active foam cannon here. Now they are planning on making a new version coming out soonish, probably assuming in the springtime. I'll definitely be reviewing one of those when they come out. Now, everybody has said this is one of the best foam cannons on the market. I actually could not disagree more. Couple of things I don't like. I do like the bottle on here. I do like that this fully stainless steel. It's a reasonable price point, still a little bit more expensive on the price point, but couple key things on here. I don't like that this is threaded. Quick disconnects are way better. The new ADS Drift foam cannon is way nicer to be able to hot swap these. Having to spin this out and tighten it every time I really don't like. The other issue is this situation here. It has way too much play in it, and at wide open, what is that? Seriously, that is truly unimpressive. So you're always having to dial this in, and it's just every time you bump it, it moves a little bit. It's really finicky, not into that. So we're gonna start off here with a initial pre-wash snow foam. So the first initial foam you're gonna see here is not gonna be monumental. This is Labo Cosmetica Primus 2.0, diluted 5:1 in here. After that, we'll do my same dilution that I use on the Krunzla, and then we'll kind of dial it into what I've found that works kind of best with the Active 2.3, having that more flow out of the foam cannon here. Again, 145 orifice in here. So let's see how this is. It's about perfect, maybe slightly open. Let's get this foam down. All right, so just foaming down Labo Cosmetica at a 5:1 here. One thing I can tell you, definitely, it's a lot more runny. So that is one of the things with this pump that you're gonna have to realize. The higher you go in flow, the runnier your soap is. So you're gonna have to use it a little bit more aggressive. Now, for a lot of people, that can be a little bit scarier, especially when you get into acidic soaps and acid soaps. So you're essentially diluting everything down more just because you have more flow. Now, it's not to say it's bad here, especially with a pre-wash. You actually want something that is quite runny, because what it's gonna do is break down all this dirt and grime and pull it down here off the surface. So it's not something bad. Again, it's just something you have to consider, and that is one of the differences that you're gonna have to realize here. Now again, if they let you have a little bit more headway, you could use 135 and 125, but again, you don't wanna damage your micro switch. So you could get better foam by clamping that down a little bit, but that's just something you're gonna have to play with a little bit and with your soap. So I'm gonna let this sit here, do its thing, and then we'll come back in. I'll show you a little bit of a rinse of this. I'll show you especially down the sides that were very, very dirty down here. You can see all the dirt and grime on this thing. This thing is absolutely filthy, disgusting, very, very nasty in here. Man, look at the grime that's pulling off, pretty wild. So I'll let this sit, we'll rinse it off, then we'll foam it again with the solution I was using, perfectly dialed in for the Krunzla. Nice, rich, thick snow foam with Meguiar Shampoo Plus. And then we'll kind of dial it up a little bit more with kind of what I typically use here with Shampoo Plus, and we'll show you the foam out of it. The rinsability on this is just absolutely wild. It feels like a ton of water. And again, it's, you know, I guess calculation wise, so 1.88 on my Krunzla to the 2.22 it feels so much more. And again, that's been the difference here, is that I don't want to go back. I've actually plugged the Krenzla back in, and this just feels really, really nice in terms of rinsing. What I actually feel here is, especially in lower areas like that in the grills, that I actually spend less time rinsing. So it actually does make my job a little bit more efficient just because you have more flow in there. Now again, there's other machines out there, the new 635 that are 3 gallons per minute, which is going to be crazy to play around with if I ever get one here at the shop. And yeah, it is just truly wild. So let me bring you down to some dirtier sections. We can kind of see how it just cleans up right after that pre-wash. Then we'll refoam it with our Meguiar's. All right, so in here we've got our Shampoo Plus, and what I typically do with my soap is I actually create a 5-gallon container. I pre-dilute everything. It's good, ready to go. This comes out to roughly about 2 ounces per an entire foam cannon. So I don't know exactly how much is in here, but I want to show you it on a door and then what I actually use with Active 2.3. So, and as you guys can clearly see here with Meguiar's Shampoo Plus, you guys have probably watched numerous videos of this same exact dilution on the Krenzla. I could set it up, it's just a whole thing to do. It's quite watery, it's quite runny. That's not really what I'm looking for when we're talking about our shampoo to actually do our contact wash. So, let me get this switched out. I typically use 4 ounces in a canister like this with the Active. We've got this all mixed up here. Let's do the back door with the 4-ounce solution. And as you guys can immediately tell, just way thicker, way more foam. Of course, it makes sense. We're using more soap in here. It's runny because you're using a large orifice on this and you've got a lot of flow going through there. So that's something to really consider. You're going to need to up the amount of snow foam you are actually using on your vehicle. So naturally, using something like the 2.3 here, not having the ability to go down to a 135, a 125 to not over dry on current, you're going to blow through more solution. And as you guys can see there, literally just that door went through quite a bit. So you are just plowing through snow foam on big high flow machines like this. So I'll continue to foam the rest of this down. It's still an impressive unit, but just want to give you these small little nuances that I don't think a lot of people actually truly talk about. All right, guys, so I think I've summarized kind of my findings over the past month and had some more time to think as I'm filming this video and finishing washing up my EV6 here and drying it down. And I guess my overall consensus with this machine is this month has kind of ruined me. And why I say that is because my heart and my detailer inside of me wants to leave the Krenzla K1322 TS up there. But my mind and my want to continually improve and get the better, get the best, and showcase that on this channel and, in my detailing business. I have really, really enjoyed working with this unit for the past month and all the washes I've done on this. And I think it is just one of those things. I put the Krenzla back on the wall and it's really hard to go back. It is really, really hard to go back. So I think this sits at a very good price point. I think $540, $539.99 is a very reasonable ask for this machine. And personally, I think this is worth every single penny of $190 more than an Active 2.0. Now, like I said, one of my customers has these to where I go travel to his house across country to actually detail, and it's a fine machine. There's nothing wrong with it. And the reason we purchased that unit was because I'm not using that every single day in, day out. I don't really care about the noise performance. I just need a pressure washer to be able to wash his cars and then get into detailing. But if I were to be purchasing, a unit in this price point, 100% I would go with the Active 2.3. Now, I haven't tried everything on the market. I have not ever tested one of the AR machines, nor the 630 V2 or the new 635. But this, I think, is a really, really impressive price point. I just think it's great. I mean, at the point of, you can make the argument the Krenzlas, the ARs are going to last longer. You could buy 2 of these things. And then by the time your pump dies and you need a new one, if you just don't maintain it at all, you don't want to change out the seals, there's going to be something else out and it's going to be quieter. It's going to have more flow. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. And that's a really cool thing. This is a nice blip on the timeline. And I really, yeah, it really has screwed my mind up this month. To be honest, I would have probably never really purchased one of these. I would have never purchased an AR until my Krenzla died. And my plans were to run that thing into the ground until it no longer works. And then I tried this and I was like, damn it, I can't go back. I just can't. So I'm impressed with this unit, but bar none, really impressed. I think my biggest negative with this, and again, this is going to be something as, I continue to play with more pressure washers and foam cannons, different orifice sizes and things like that, is I had my Krenzla so dialed that, bumping up to a 145 in this and having more flow, you realize how much more product you're going through. So more is more in general. This is just more. It's more of everything. It's more water. It's more, flow. It's more soap that you're using. So do consider that, if you've got an Active 2.0 and it works great for you, then keep using that. I don't think you need to upgrade. I would, purchase this though instead of a 2.0 if you're in the market for one, because again, I think it's worth every bit of $190 more. And I really prefer the sound on this over the 2.0. I think that's a big takeaway for me. I think a lot of people way overblow the noise of this thing. And in practice, in reality, the way I use pressure washers and wash cars and things like that, I'm not standing here 6 inches away from this. I'm washing the damn car. I'm not, here. It does not bother me whatsoever. And I personally think it sounds way better than a 2.0, like substantially more. And I would prefer to never really have a universal motor in a professional application like this. And I would argue, again, even for those of you at home that may not have the budget, I would save $200 more and get this over the 2.0 every single day of the week. So that's my review of the Active 2.3. I'm very curious to see what you guys think of this. I've really, really enjoyed playing with this over the last month. I can't thank Active enough for sending this out. Again, this is the cool thing that we get to do. You guys get to learn with me. I get to learn with you. I think that's the one important takeaway, and one thing I've always been quite proud of in my detailing business is that I'm never afraid to try new things. And in fact, I think it's something that I kind of keep with the ethos of my business, that every single detail I do, I'm trying to outperform the last detail I did, always getting better, always learning more. In this industry, if you stop learning, if you stop trying new things, you are going to fail. You have to continue to play with new products, do things differently, get more efficient, and figure all of it out. And again, the Active 2.3 here is pushing me in that direction. So big thanks to Active. There will be a referral link in the description below. If you decide you want to pick one of these up, you can use my code. I'll leave it down there. And happy holidays to you guys. This thing's awesome. We'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.